Good morning. Ooh, that's loud. Yeah. Good morning. A lot of new faces today. These meetings are like super casual. We do have a timer, but it's just open discussion and feedback and all that kind of stuff. We want to hear problems and occasional something good. But this is just sort of a conversational setting, and we keep it casual and light and respectful, all those kind of things. And whoever wants to get us started, just come to the mic and state your name and your address for the record, and let's just get started. Yes, sir.
I'm not coming.
And also make sure you get a donut too. Yes, sir.
Good morning, Captain James Pick, 2508 West 9th Street. Sorry about my attire, but I got sidetracked to a meeting on my way to the boxing club this morning. So, I wanted to talk about the St. Andrews Civic Club building, since there seems to be a lot going on with that, and wanted to let the commission and the mayor and the city manager and the city attorney, who I know knows already, that we have put the band back together. The old group that ran the city club, the St. Andrews Civic Club for 75 years, without any help from the city. First it was the men's club, then it was the St. Andrews Civics Club, and then we'll skip the issues we had the last 4 or 5 years. There's no reason to talk about that. That was a totally different group of people sitting up here. So we'll be submitting a proposal this week that we would like to take it back and run it the same way we ran it for the last 75 years prior to our little hiccup with the city. We would like to be autonomous and get a long-term lease from the city and have an agreement that I'm sure the lawyers can all work out. And it would be at no cost to the city, and we would run it exactly the same way we ran it before. We would pay all the utilities, all the insurance, all the upkeep on the building. We would put hopefully we could work with a partnership with you guys to put the building back together. I have background in real estate and construction, and I was able to negotiate a roof and a central heat and air unit and windows and everything with interest-free loans when I was president of the Civic Club the last few years that we were together. And as some of you may know or may not know, but the clubhouse was the only viable building left in St. Andrews after Hurricane Michael. We actually hosted a Thanksgiving dinner there, the Thanksgiving after Hurricane Michael in October. And that's because we maintained it. We kept it up. It was well kept. And like I said, and I can't stress this enough, at no cost to the city. And that's where we'd like to go with it. And like I said, the band's back together. We have the old vice president, the president, one of the other board members. We have 4 other board members that are, from the 4 other people from the community that want to get involved. I think we have a lot of support in the community for doing this, and I feel like we could get support from the city also. It'd just be one less headache for you guys. So we would rent it for parties, weddings, and it's the same thing we were doing before. There were many opportunities that were missed that have moved elsewhere, like there's a music venue now in Lynn Haven, Roberts Hall, that could have been at the Civic Club all these years. And so there's just a lot of things. So unless you have questions, I guess my time's up.
Totally. Do you want to keep talking about Truesdale, or do you want to go to the next person?
Well, I do have a question.
Sure.
What does support from the city look like to you all?
Well, we would like all the funds that are now delegated towards the building turned over to us. And I wouldn't care if we had Jonathan or somebody else overseeing how we spent it. But I believe that we could do a better job of spending that money than the city could. No offense. Don't be offended by that.
Take it, believe me. I promise you.
So that's where we'd like to start. And I think that we could get local people to help putting the building back together. For instance, for whatever reason the building was gutted, it doesn't take a whole lot of experience or common sense to daisy chain all the electrical throughout the building and run it into a new box. And with some electricians, whether they're licensed or unlicensed, or help from some licensed electricians. All it takes is the city okaying the electricity, making sure that it's done properly. It doesn't take a whole lot to hang sheetrock. So we can purchase the materials at a cost, hopefully a discounted cost, and put it up ourselves with community effort. I believe right now there's a lot of community support for this due to what's happened over the last few weeks. And so I think that's one of the reasons that we can do this better than you guys could.
Okay, but, so you do want some city support?
We would like to be able to be available for any grant money that's out there. We would like, I think there's a problem with 501c3s getting grant money in some situations. But before we become a 501c3 under the agreement terms that we all work out, if we could get some grant money, any money that's already appropriated for the building and that kind of stuff, that's the only support we'd want. And it's like I told the mayor, once the building is done and finished and turned over completely back over to the club, then I would bow out. I was president the last 4 years, and I'm tired. I don't want to. I want to enjoy my old age, and so I would bow out and turn it over to somebody else. But I would be more than happy with my connections and my experience in the real estate business to help see the project through.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, you said a couple of times like grants and whatnot. Are you looking for that to just rebuild the building? Or are you looking for that?
Put it
for
back together.
For
That's it.
continued operations.
That's just put it back together the way it was.
Okay.
And like I said, I don't want to go into what happened, but
Yeah.
when you guys got it back, it was perfect.
But I guess what I'm getting at, is it fair to say that what you're proposing, when you say that you're looking for some support from the city, is only to rebuild what was there or to put it back together? It's not for continued operations?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Brian,
I just want to make sure I'm clear with my
in the
understanding.
75 years that we had that building, and I don't know if you're familiar with the history of the building, but it was the men's club built it on a handshake from the city. They operated the building, maintained it, and did everything for the years until it morphed into the St. Andrews Civic Club, and it morphed into the St. Andrews Civic Club to allow women to be part of it, because before that it was a men's club and no women were allowed. So it morphed into the St. Andrews Civic Club, and we continued to maintain the building to the point that when I became president, I made a lot of people mad that were in the club, because I immediately went out and spent a bunch of money on windows, because we had the old crank out windows, and that cut our electric bill down by $150 a month. And then a few years later, we put a new roof on it, and there was no damage to the roof after Michael, except for I think it was maybe the northwest corner had a little bend in it. And so, yeah, we maintain it. We paid all the utilities, all the insurance, everything that needed to be on the building, and replaced everything. There was never, I don't recall ever or ever seeing anything that said we ever got a penny from the city of Panama City.
Any other discussion about Truesdale, or anyone else want to speak on Truesdale?
There are a couple of things, since you want to talk about Truesdale, if you don't mind. We would like the city to put a separate water meter in, because on part of the property, since the parking might go away, we'd like to construct a community garden and name it after Willard Nelson, who was a figurehead in the Civic Club back when it was the men's club to when it morphed into what it is then. And we would like to call that the Willard Nelson Memorial Community Garden. And we would like a bathroom that could cater to both places. We'd like the city to put in a bathroom. And I'm talking about something like at the Carl Gray Park, where I could go in with a hose and just spray it down and clean it that way, with a little Clorox and a hose. And we would probably put up a couple of swing sets and things like that for kids when there's a party going on, for the kids to have something to do. But other than that, we don't really want anything from the city.
Okay. Yeah. Anyone else? Yeah. Go ahead, right to the mic. Yes, ma'am. We don't have to keep it topical, but just easier.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, just to continue with Truesdale Park, I
Yeah.
just want to thank you for what you guys have done as far as
We
like.
we don't need your address, but we just need your name.
I'm
so-
sorry,
so we know who we're
Dolores,
talking to.
it's way early in the morning. I don't usually.
We have coffee.
I've had a cup of coffee. I don't usually speak this early in the morning. But Dolores King, I live in St. Andrews. I live 5 doors down from Truesdale Park. And I want to thank you guys for the work that you've done so far to back off and listen to what the community wants, and especially on the parking and going forward. I saw your post, Josh. That's good. I really, I mean, I know that sometimes we have opinions and we have strong opinions, but I'm really appreciative that we're working together on that. I do support the fact that we need, we need a much smaller parking lot with, and I know that there will be plans that we can look at, so that's wonderful. Excuse me. And I do support the fact that we need the building to stay a community center. That's foremost. I feel like any type of private partnership with a business that is, I would say it needs to stay in a 501c3 hands, because it's a community park, and we don't want to see our parks taken over and turned into parking lots and bars and restaurants, across the board. I mean, that's something that I feel very strongly about. And then there's one other thing I wanted to mention, is that I think that a lot of this could have been avoided, and we always learn, by what happens, right? I'm all about, okay, well, this happened, we don't want that happening, let's find a solution. And I spoke to Josh about this, but I feel like all of the community meetings, when by ward, and it's wonderful that all the commissioners are doing those by ward, but when I wasn't able to be at a couple of those meetings for various reasons, but those meetings, when I scoured the city's website, they are not, all I could get was just a standardized blurb about what the meeting is. It's just a standardized, like, well, this is what the meeting is. It didn't have, there's no agenda, there's no video taken, and there's no, and there's no minutes. So whenever this parking lot plan was presented, I couldn't find any record of when that was presented to the public. And so when it did come out on Facebook, it was like, whoa, wait a minute, and that's why I got mad. And I'll be honest with you, that's why I got mad. It just, I live 5 houses down. I'm like, whoa, no, you can't do this to our park. And so that, if there's a way that we can improve that as far as the communication and notifications, I don't know if there's a way that we can send out, I am on all the Panama City alerts, I get those. But if there's a way that we can, like, okay, this meeting's coming up, and I know they're broad meetings as far as, like, it's kind of more informal, but if there are topics that are, this is what we're going to talk about, there's going to be this plan presented, then the community would know ahead of time, and then there would be ways, if we can't attend for whatever reason, we can go back and look at it. And Jonathan talked about doing door hangers and some other things, which is a wonderful idea. And then he also talked about doing.
I'm Jonathan. He's
I'm
Josh.
sorry, Jonathan. Josh. I'm sorry. It's like I said, it's early in the morning, but it's J.O., right? I'm sorry,
beard.
Josh. Josh.
the
I'm
beard.
sorry.
My own mother used to mistake my name because all 3 of our brothers are Jays.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it
yeah, yeah,
comes-
well, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
used to
Tom,
it.
Dick, or Harry, right? Anyway, the door hangers, and he also spoke about doing a recap after the meeting. So that would be very helpful too. But again, first and foremost, let's work together. Let's get this thing, to where we don't. Also, I don't want to set a precedent for us taking over our parks. We have a lot of beautiful parks in this town, and we have a lot of. I know the city has a lot of land, but I don't want that land to be given away or sold. That's once it's gone, and we have some precious resources that I feel the city needs to keep, and and preserve. And Alan, you're a historian. Let's keep St. Andrews as historic as we are working on downtown, and that's Truesdale Park is part of that. I think that we could do a lot of historical things there, as far as I mean, I think that we could have, work with the Bay County Historical Society and promote it also as a historical venue.
I love it. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Truesdale Park.
So if I could go
Oh,
kind of say, because I know you guys have kind of said a few things. So my intention, I think I added a meeting item to our next meeting.
Correct.
Just to kind of create some clarity on the parking, and not proceeding forward with it as currently designed. But the other thing that I would just communicate is, I feel really strongly we should work a step-by-step process, just kind of going back to the beginning, starting with the parking, getting to the park amenities. And I think there's a request coming to us from our Parks Committee, Advisory Committee that we formulated to potentially hold until they can finish their review on what uses are going to be at these parks. So I know that's something that we'll discuss on Tuesday, but where I'm at in this, before we start jumping to another 501c3 or another for-profit or anything else like that, we've got specific funding that is restricted for the city to specifically use it. It's a grant, so we can't just transfer that to any individual group. Let's complete the work that we have funding for with public feedback and public shaping, and before we get into uses and, whatever other things that we have to get to on trying to get the facility activated. So that's just, I just want to give you guys my thoughts on where we're at, as well as the feedback that I'm getting, not only from this group, but from the board in general, so.
What is that noise? Yes, sir. Good morning.
My name is Kenneth Kane, and I own the properties directly adjacent to the park. You come out my back door and you're in the park. My children, my grandchildren all grew up playing in that park. And I wanted to say some of the good things that the community center did back. I've owned my house for 35 years after I retired from the Navy. And they gave out scholarships to children. We veterans had meetings there. I was actually a member for a while for the men's club, and we were able to have veterans meetings, a good location for it. And I just really don't want a parking lot right at my back door. Not a 65 count, and I definitely don't want a pub, because that just brings too many problems. I have a disabled daughter that was in a car accident 25 years ago, and she lives in, we built on an area in the back where the ramp is, and she has to have access in and out, because we call a lot of ambulances and things like that, and as she's getting older. But I really, even if we do end up doing a parking lot, I just want it known that I need some kind of access, or, deeded, so that I can be able to get ambulances in there and get my daughter out of there, in case if there's a fire or something. So, but taking over as a community would be a great thing. We have a lot of people that are willing to help put it back together, and we'd be able to serve the community better, and it wouldn't cost you guys anything. So I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you thinking about the issue, and thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Anyone else on Truesdale? Sure, come on up.
I just want to say, on Saturday during the farmer's market, I walked down to Truesdale Park, and it was about 10:30, 11 o'clock, so prime time at the farmer's market. And I counted the cars that were parked in Truesdale Park all around, willy-nilly, and there were 25. So I think that that's a good judge of like maximum need for the parking. So I just wanted to add that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Sure, come on up. We do want to save time for other topics, but let's keep going.
This is in response to what Mr. Street had to say, my commissioner. The community doesn't want what you want. We can do a better job. We are the logical choice for this situation. We did it already. We've got a track record of doing it. We have no negative anything about the Civic Club or the Men's Club or anything. And I can tell you, there's a lot of voters and a tremendous amount of community support for what we want. So that was just what I wanted to say.
Yes, sir, thank you.
And my point is that may be, end up being what it is.
Right.
We just need to kind of take one step at a time. That's what I told everybody that we would do. And my intent is to honor what I've already communicated and walking through step by step.
Yeah. Anyone else? All right, let's keep going. Who else wants to talk? Yes, ma'am, come on up.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Elizabeth.
Oh, you might want to pull the mic down a little closer. Yes, ma'am.
I'm short.
You're good.
My name is Elizabeth Blakely, and I live in the San Andrews area. And we're here on the behalf of trying to get some crosswalks or something in San Andrews in the area that we live in. Okay, we the residents of the concerned community members are requesting the immediate creation of a safe walking path for pedestrians in the area between Frankfurt and Balboa Avenue. The neighborhood is a high traffic, and where we walk, and most of the people that live there, they are the only means of transportation they have is walking. And my sister was struck there on September the 7th this year, and she just left Bay Medical going into Encompass Care. So the San Andrews community we should not have to live in fear about where we walk and live, because that's, like I said, most of them, that's their only mode of transportation is walking. Okay, a designated protective pedestrian path is necessary, not a luxury over there. We urge local officials, city planners, transportation authorities to take immediate action to design and construct a safe walking path to ensure the protection of our pedestrians in that area. Thank you, Elizabeth Blakely.
And what area was that again,
Yeah,
just to double
Frankfurt
check?
and Balboa.
Franklin and Balboa.
On
Frankfurt.
15th Street.
Are you
Oh, on
talking-
15th Street, okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay. I
And
was
there's a
looking at
lot of
11.
businesses there, so they have
Oh,
no
yeah,
choice
yeah.
but try to cross over to get to those stores and stuff that's on the other side.
Jonathan, will you, will you circulate to all of us, and maybe, I don't know, Janice, if you want to post it, or if you want me to post it, but there is a project that we've worked on extensively for a RAISE grant that includes a multi-use path from that exact section. We have been unable to get it funded because it is a state road, but we would love you guys' partnership in advocating,
Yes.
getting letters of support from the community. I am very well aware, since I've been in office, there's probably been 7 or 8 deaths. And that's just not acceptable. We've gotten some minor changes, like with bike lanes and things like that, that help a little bit, but not anything that's gonna
Crossing
help.
over.
That's,
That's the problem.
exactly. And,
Yes.
and so I would love for us to kind of get that plan recirculated, and if there's citizens that are ready to advocate, I
Yeah.
think you'll find the board ready to advocate with you.
Okay,
So-
thank you.
And just to add, where the accident occurred was across from Family Dollar.
Right.
So,
In that area.
so that's where the hill begins the incline from Frankfurt. And so you've got traffic leaving the red light, accelerating.
Right.
And you've got pedestrians crossing in the dark. And so this was at Ducks, and
It was
unfortunately.
that dark, and
Yeah.
also those people, they were working on the road that night as well,
Okay.
so.
Well,
I'm
and then
so sorry.
DOT added some little medians further down closer to Hathaway Bridge. Was that an effort?
Yes,
And
that was
why are we
another
carrying
effort.
that down through?
So it
Exactly.
really comes down to where they allocate their funding.
Yeah.
And a lot of that funding is dependent upon citizens advocating for that funding to be spent. So what I see here today is a group of citizens ready to advocate for some improvements. Let's try to find a way to coalesce and get the remaining of the road even done with access management.
Do you want to talk through just how we interact with DOT, since you've been on that?
Yeah, so it's a mix that, we love our DOT partners, but we are one of thousands of voices at that table. So oftentimes we get drowned out, even when there's serious issues. And the section between the bridge and where you're talking about is one of the 10 deadliest sections of road we have in the entire state of Florida. And so, constant advocating for that. But, ultimately, when citizens write letters, when they write things of support, that happens so frequently. I may be at the table, Janice may be at the table, Alan may be at the table, Brian or Robbie, but when our citizens advocate for things, that's when they really start to think, hey, this is an issue that we need to pay attention to. This is a safety issue, so this is a top priority for the district, but we've got to make sure they understand every time that there's one, and I'm sorry I didn't know about your sister, so
Yes.
that must have recently happened.
It
I guess
did,
I just didn't
September the 7th.
see on the news or anything, but I
No,
try to,
We never make the news when stuff like that happens.
yeah,
over
see,
there,
like,
'cause
that's the
it's
stuff that
several.
I need to know
Yeah,
too.
it's several.
Because I send them on and I say like, look, this is just another example
Right.
of why, and I hate that
Yes.
is, I mean, it's like, sometimes you're waiting for change for something bad to happen, and that is a terrible way to govern
Yes.
and a terrible way to build projects. But we know this is an issue, and I would love to see, more community support for making these changes.
You'll
Lots of
get it.
emails. Thank
Yeah.
you. Yes, ma'am. You gonna speak next? Yes, ma'am.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Cheryl Franklin. This is my cousin Elizabeth, and the rest that's in here, we're all kinfolk, so we're all very much concerned. So I'm gonna give you a list of the names who were injured. Had one death from that, they got, hit by the car. They got, okay, Shirley Lowe, which is my cousin, her sister, Roosevelt Tyson, Jackie Gaynor, twice it happened with her, Pam Stewart, Carolyn Dixon, she's the one that died from what she sustained from her injuries, Fatima Stewart, and Mr. Charlie Robbins. He passed also. So my concern is this been going on over the years, So, but this last one, which was Shirley, her injuries were so bad that she's still, trying to recoup. So she was in pretty bad shape after her accident. So my thing is, if we can only just get some kind of protection, because it's bad, and so when we hear something like that, like I said, it's 1, 2, about 9 or 10 of them. And now, even when I cross the street, when I'm going, I only just take a walk, I'm just so fearful because you just never know. And then there's no meetings or nothing there, it's just scary. It's very fearful. So we're here to stand for that. So whatever else you need from us, whatever we need to do, letters or whatever, we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it.
Can-
So we just thank you all for listening.
Thank you. Yeah, and we don't control that road, so we go to a TPO board and we advocate for what you want. So lots and lots of emails, a stack of letters would be awesome to say, so we can take to the DOT board and say, here's what we need. So,
Or even coming to the meeting.
or even coming to the meetings would be
Because
very helpful.
There's
Yes.
19 elected officials on that board.
And-
So we're
and
all
we-
competing in our different cities of like, we want DOT to do this, and Callaway versus Springfield versus the beach, and so we definitely need that support.
Yes.
come
And since
to
I've
me.
served on the Bay County Transportation Planning Organization, which is the organization they're speaking of, I've brought two things forward. One has been the strip that you're talking about between Frankfurt and Balboa on 15th Street. This is going to help a great deal, all of you speaking up and helping to bring that forward. This last meeting, again, I brought attention to it. And so now being able to follow up with your input is going to be especially helpful. The other was MLK, because similar things happening over there. And if we want development in those areas, then businesses have to know that cars can get in and get out. And so in January 24th, brought that forward. January 25, DOT gives us their report that says MLK is a highly functional highway. That for them, it's one of the best in the Panhandle. And I said, but for community, it's not functional. And so again, being able to speak to that in the letters would be helpful as well. But this community support today is exactly what we need, because we can do so much as elected officials, but you all pushing us and backing us, that makes the biggest difference. So I appreciate all of you being here for all of the issues that you're here for today.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Good morning.
Once again, my name is Wilmar Lee. I am the brother. And like I said, all these relatives up in here. We just want to put a little emphasis on reiterating about, this is a historical thing. It goes way back, starting from the 50s all up to now, when it was just 15th Street was just a smaller place. Maybe even a dirt road at one time. So with that expansion, Panama City is well known. It became on the map now. So the only direction to get to the beach is 98 15th Street. And so with that being said, the incident of being able to cross over and pay attention and be aware, I know that there are safety measures that have been put in place all the way up to this point to where we're at right now. But the more we get an increase of population of people coming into Panama City, you got to realize there are going to be accidents, whether somebody's paying attention or not. So hypothetically, you know, I'm a retired military veteran. I'm disabled myself. But being around the world and looking at different places that I've been, you know, when you got a high congestion area, even though you got red lights and you got crosswalks and all those things, and you got to wait for the hand to change and say go or whatever, there's always that one individual that doesn't pay attention to that. Either they'll take a chance on a yellow light or maybe a red light or in between the other. So as busy as Panama City has become with 98 and 15th Street, between that structure, that area right there, between San Andrew going out to the beach, I was thinking about catwalks. You know, we can't really go underground because of the water table. But you can put a catwalk that actually goes over the highway, maybe necessarily not with the red light per se, but in between the individual where the businesses are located, where a high visibility crossing area might want to look at. A crosswalk would be with the infrastructure with so that people don't fall out of, you know what I mean? That's bared up. I can't go into details. You guys know more about that than me. But you see where I'm trying to go with it, all right? And just as much as I heard everybody on the panel say, whatever that's required of us, please let us know what we need to do to push the envelope to get something help to support you guys, just so that you can help us as well. All right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Between now, and this is a question for all of us, between now and getting DOT to do something, can we get FPL to put more lights in, like street lights? So it's not so dark at night?
So that's a great point. So they've already come through one round. We switched them all out to LEDs. We added a few. So if you see a pole that only has just a light on it, there's no power and things like that, that came from a request to FPL. There may need to be more. You know, that section that's right there, there's a ton of pedestrian activity, similar to like right over near the overpass. There's a lot around the Mound Avenue area, just people walking north and south quite a bit. And so mid-block crossings, they did put some pedestrian flashers on that section. Maybe that's something that we need to look at. But I would encourage this next TPO meeting, if we can get some letters of support that can just come to all of us, all 5 of us. We're 5 members of that board. There's 19 on that board. I mean, there may have been in the last year 2 citizens that have come and talked to us. It's very, very few. So if we can share what you guys have shared today, I mean, having names of people, like that is massively impactful, because everyone that's making these decisions, these are just statistics on a thing. You put a name to it, that's a completely different scenario, and a family member to it, as you guys have done today. I mean, you know, I would like to think we're not heartless individuals that serve in government and will expedite to finding solutions faster than what we are currently. So
there was a road that I saw, sorry to take over here real quick, but there was a road that when I was down in Orlando, that it was an older road in an older part of that town, and they had protected crossings every mid-block and at the ends of each block. So I mean, it was, you couldn't go 200 yards without a crossing, and they had the flashing lights, they had the protected median. So I think that may be a direction that we probably should go in these areas where we see a lot of pedestrian traffic. Though one of the problems with the overpasses is that they're incredibly expensive. I mean, they are just ridiculously expensive. I mean, we're talking millions of dollars. And then whatever you do, you put it in one spot. So now everybody has to walk to that one spot, and people probably aren't going to do that. So that's where I'd like to just see a bunch of protected crossings and protected medians where maybe you can only get halfway through the road and now you're protected, because if somebody hits that median, it's going to hurt their vehicle and not you. But yeah, that's what I think my vision would be of that corridor.
they're called pedestrian refuges.
Yeah.
Refuges. And there is one now that they just installed at Beck Avenue in 98. And so if you want to know what that looks like, you can see it. You can actually stop in the middle of traffic, and there's these raised medians to kind of protect you, and then you can go to your next step.
Is
after
it currently
that.
in the plan to continue those?
There are plans that have exactly
I'm
what you're
sorry, the
asking for.
funding.
No,
There are plans
no.
and then there's funding.
No, yeah,
So
yeah.
is there
There's
money to
plans.
continue it right now?
No, there's not funding
Okay.
now. However, what I would say, Janice, is maybe we need to, when we tackled this a year ago, we didn't have the CRA expanded at that point. So,
Yes.
I mean, we could go back and say, hey, we're willing to come to the table with $200,000, whatever it is, to try and help expedite that. Because when I look at the prioritization that we have, protecting life and property is, the top of things that we do, and life above property. So, I would be supportive of looking whatever options we've got to try to expedite, especially if the community's willing to get behind it and advocate for it. That's,
Josh,
it makes
would,
it so much easier.
You're on.
okay, would, any monies have to be 50% matched? For example, let's just say we had $200,000 and letters of support. Would that help, or would they want to say, it's $1 million and we need y'all to put in 300,000 more? Or is that, do those match, are they like matching grants with the DOT?
Matching funds will definitely expedite something in their work program.
Okay.
And so, and the other thing is our voters just passed this, the infrastructure surtax.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of things that didn't exist a year ago that do exist now. And if the community's ready to support it, then we just need to get behind it and push it with everything we've got.
But
and
if we
see what
lean
can
that way,
accomplish.
does that help?
Yeah, oh
Okay.
yes, 100%.
Right.
So,
So he just mentioned the CRA expansion. We have 4 CRAs in the city of Panama City. One is in St. Andrews. The community we're talking about now, the Hill community, was not included in the CRA in years past. So that's one of the things that I advocated for along with this commission. The CRA now includes this neighborhood that we're talking about that we know and love as the Hill. And so that gives us extra leverage to be able to do what they're talking about.
So you-
What I've heard here, some next steps would be reaching out to FPL to see if we can get some immediate lighting, taking your voices and support and letters to the next transportation planning organization. And then it's on our agenda now, and the city manager is gonna be on
fix
top
it
of
all.
it as well.
I'm sorry, I'm Eddie Lee.
Yes,
My
sir.
auntie was the one who got hit, Shirley Lowe. I was just,
Raise them.
oh, sorry.
Yeah.
You got the tall jeans.
It's like the lighting thing. I was wondering if you could kind of push for that, because it is dark down there. And you got people that can barely see. You got people that's walking around with dark clothes and all that. And like they were saying, ain't nobody gonna walk all the way to Frankfurt to cross the crosswalk. If they're right there, you got people that's older than me. That's the only way they can go across the street. And I was just kind of seeing, besides the stores and all that lighting, was there a possible way y'all can push for the lighting so people can see people crossing the road? And that's basically it. But I understand y'all was talking about the lighting and all that. So I was just saying if there's a possible way y'all can kind of brighten up 15th Street. 'Cause I know after the storm, we're really, we had lighting then. But since then, we really didn't have no lighting after that.
Yeah, we can start that conversation right away with Shane Boyette at FPL, which is its government liaison or affairs. My parents actually lived near the port, and we were staying out there one weekend. My house got flooded with our water heater, and my wife and I walked around 98 right there near the Hathaway Bridge. We crossed over near the gas station, and we're standing in the middle of the night in the turn lane and going, "This is a bad idea." And you're in the dark, and cars are going both directions, and you're like, "Ooh, Frogger."
They're not going 45.
No, they're not going 45. They're going 55 or 60.
And not to mention those cars that don't have headlights on.
Yeah, and you get hit by the car you don't see. So you're like, oh. Yeah, that was not a fun experience. So we definitely need to improve that for a lot of reasons. Thank you.
thank you for coming in.
Yes, ma'am. My wife said, we shouldn't cross here. We should. I said, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Hi, my name's Kathy Jackson. And when you was mentioning about the lighting, one of the things that we have had problems in the Hill is not only on 15th Street, there are no street lights in the neighborhood. We have called FPL several times. We have not been able to, they say, okay, we're coming out. They have the form, they want you to go out on the pole to get the number off the pole to fill out the form to get lighting. That's another dangerous thing because as my nephew just said, there are people in dark clothing, most people that don't have cars on bicycles. And it is totally a dangerous neighborhood. So not only on 15th Street, but all up, back up in the neighborhood. And that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. Yeah, yeah, and I don't want to get hit, and I don't want to hit anybody else too. Imagine being that person. That's not fun either. Being
I
the
didn't
person
think
that
about
hits
it
somebody
till
else.
my cousin Eddie brought it up, and
Yes,
then
ma'am.
Kathy just came up and said, but the light, if we have to wait to get major things, that's fine, but right now, we're very much need in the lighting.
Lighting would be the quickest.
About 2 weeks ago, I like to hit a guy, didn't see him, and the reason why was the lighting. I said, oh my God, and it scared me. And he was right up on me, and I didn't see him, right there on that same
yeah.
strip, so I just want to piggyback off of that.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Virgil Marshall. The reason that it's an issue, it is the hill. Literally, if you're going west on 15th Street or east, you come up. So visibility is completely different. The reason it's important that we have a crosswalk, as I'm here primarily for the Robert and Mary King Park, the kids that live on the hill that want to play basketball, they got to cross it in the daytime, okay? And we don't want to lose any of our children, okay? So we need to consider that.
Absolutely.
Let's make it safe.
Yes, sir. Anyone else? We'll talk about traffic safety? Yeah, come on up. Good seeing you again.
You too.
She drew blood out of me. Did a
I
great
did.
job.
That's what I did. Oh, she's excellent.
She saw my Glenwood sticker on my old phone.
You need a new sticker?
Yeah, I do need a new sticker. That's my old.
Good morning. My name's Vanessa Waddell. I know we're all talking about the St. Andrews area and the hill. I'm sorry, I'm not that tall. We're talking about St. Andrews area and the hill, but Janice said something that caught my attention because Martin Luther King took my brother's life. It was 9:06 p.m. He was wearing royal blue and silver. And because of the foot traffic there, most of the movement is foot traffic. And I fought that then to get the speed limit changed because when you're in the Cove, the speed limit is 35. When you're north of 231, the speed limit is 35. It was 45 at that time. I did raise a little hell, and I understand now it's 35 miles per hour in that particular area, but it's still dangerous in that area. I'm Glenwood till I die, and so that is my passion. And you said that the Department of Transportation is saying that is a viable road.
What I asked for was additional crosses. You can cross
Right.
now at 6th, 11th, 13th, 15th, and 231 to go straight across.
And as you said, there's businesses on both sides, and there are children in the area, which is always going to be my primary concern. And there needs to be safer areas for the children. So the Martin Luther King Center is about to reopen. You got children coming from all different areas of the Glenwood area, the Panama City area that's crossing over, and it's very dangerous. My brother just went to get a bag of potato chips and never came home. Because somebody was texting and driving, but still, it wasn't safe. And we do need more lighting. And I drove that road at 9:06 for weeks to understand what it was like, to see what she missed when she hit my brother. And there just need to be safer guards in all our areas, in all our communities. There need to be better lighting. The children need to be the first priority. Think about what safety guidelines you could put in if your child was in this area and they had to live in this area and they had to get to where they needed to get by foot. If it was your grandmother who had to get where she needed to get, let's put the human factor into it. Let's put let's put us in those situations. I drive. If I gotta walk, I'm just gonna sit still. I'm just telling you, I'm not walking anywhere. I'm just gonna lay down. I'm not walking anywhere. But let's consider the children in these areas and what it takes for them to be safe, what it takes for our areas to be well lit. Panama City is a beautiful place. We're trying to bring people in. Let's bring them into a safe environment. Let's do what we have to do to make it that way, because we don't want to lose another life. When my brother was hit on Martin Luther King, I think around the same area, there's 3 people that got hit at the same time, not, within that span from 15th Street to, I think my brother was at 9th Street when he was crossing over the street. And there's 3 people that got hit in that same area at that same time. And like we said, we don't want to lose another citizen because lack of, and whatever I need to do for that area, whatever letters I need to write, whoever I need to get in touch with, whatever I need to do, I'm willing to do it.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Good seeing you. Yes, sir.
Good morning. How y'all doing?
Good morning.
Doing well.
My name Gary Williams. I'm a resident, long-lived resident in the St. Andrews area. And we just want to see the same thing as far as the lighting goes. And when you come off the Hathaway Bridge, when you come up that hill right there, there's a big old sign saying something about pedestrian area. Why we can't get that same type of thing in the hill area. That's all I wanted to say. And just as soon as possible.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Anyone else? Don't be shy. We're here to talk. Good morning.
Good morning, Derek Thomas. I think that it'd be great if you have more lighting for them. I know that that corner over there on Beck and 15th, headed towards the bridge, is really bad to get across. And if you put a pathway across, I like Flower, because it's right at the top of the hill. If you can get across 15th Street on that road, that would make it easier, and it'd also make it possible for people to get golf carts from one side of the neighborhood where it's golf cart friendly to the other side.
You can't cross
Say-
15th Street.
Yeah, you can't cross US Highway.
But if you had no,
That's not
you
our
had
rule
a
either.
crosswalk.
Yeah.
Just to be
Okay.
clear.
And when you're doing all this, I had originally come here to talk about Joe Moody Harris Park, and to get the people from downtown through that abandoned railroad track that is there, if you just put the pathway on top of where the railroad track used to be, it's already built up, just put a pave on top of that, leave the tall trees on either side, maybe put up a fence in between the neighborhoods. You could get the people along 15th Street down to the downtown area through a way that doesn't have any cars involved, where there's just,
I don't
know.
think that train track has been abandoned.
well, no, they did
By
take
Joe
up the.
Moody Park.
No, not by Joe Moody. That was on the other side on 9th Street, on East 9th Street on the 2000
Oh, okay.
area, 2,300, I think. There was, anyway, I didn't want to get off the topic of getting around on a bike safely, but if you could connect up,
Using the abandoned.
yeah, using the
Okay.
abandoned track, that'd put you right past the main health department. It'll get you from downtown to 15th Street almost, and it'll connect up the area where you just put in all those high-density housing projects so that those people would have a choice other than to get in a car. They could rent, get an electric bike or something, and then those people wouldn't be on the road with everybody else.
Yeah.
But you have to have a way for them to be away from the cars. Even in the Cove, it's nice that they have those big giant sidewalks, but then there's like bumps every 10 feet when you have to have a pathway going up to somebody's driveway, so you're bouncing up and down on it, and you're right next to the road, touching the street. But Joe Moody Harris Park, there's a lot of parks, I think, that are still, haven't been fixed up around the city. And that one in particular, code enforcement here last month gave $1,500 worth of tickets to 3 properties that are about a block away from the park. They're just undeveloped woods. And what bothered me is there are 2 other 2,201 and 2,202, but there's also 2 other blocks, 2 other lots, which weren't given a ticket, and they were exactly the same as the other 3. And if it's a residential neighborhood, the people across the street were operating some kind of business. If it's not, I can understand why they would have wanted to. Anyway, I think that the 3 properties are all a developer who couldn't really open up their property for regular houses because a block away, there's still a park, which is the only place in the neighborhood to have your children play safely. And there's 8-foot chain link fence blocking it off. It's been closed down since the hurricane. There's no sidewalks in the neighborhood. There's no place for people to play. If somebody's going to invest money, they wanted that opened up first. But after paying taxes for 7 years with no opportunity to have a park right at the end of the block, now they're being asked to either sell for less than what they should be getting for it, or they're gonna be stuck with, on the 19th of this month, I think it's gonna be $1,500 a day. So they have no choice, but it's a code enforcement rule that's being applied selectively to people that aren't big developers.
So code enforcement reacts to complaints. They don't just go around, so you can't do anonymous complaints, so if you do want to report someone, you can. Do you want to give an update on Joe Moody?
Sure, I'll be happy to. So I was just talking to Commissioner Lucas about that. So we actually, great news, we just got this subrecipient grant agreement was signed, I believe, Thursday. So we'll be scheduling probably in late January or early February, a community meeting over near Joe Moody Harris Park. We've got $1.3 million in order to rehabilitate that park. It's been something we've been working on for a long time, and so we're really excited about that. Derek, you have my email. If you'll email me those exact addresses, I'll get with Mr. Fuller and Ms. Waldron and find out what's going on in regards to the
Okay, because it seemed like it was a
code
developer, but a
compliance.
small
Yeah.
developer, and a block or two away, there's a big giant housing complex, I think, that maybe a larger developer wants their property and wants to use the code enforcement, because I know with the pools and stuff, not having a fence around your pool, that's not a rule that is applied equally throughout the city, because there's a dozen or more pools that are
Correct, because we
unsecured.
only respond to reports
Yeah.
of
Complaints.
concerns of people saying this is a thing. So the other thing is, again, reports are not anonymous anymore in Florida. You can't just, and it was to prevent
That
that
was a
sort of.
state, this
Right.
is driven by the state.
Correct,
Yep.
so that people wouldn't be attacking others to get property. And so you can always do a public records request and see who made that report and see if it's related back to the developer that you suspect of this going after their property.
Yeah,
That would be.
and I'd encourage you to put a code enforcement rule saying that you can't violate a civil code and block the flow of runoff, because if you don't file a permit and you get away with not filing a permit, and the person whose property is being flooded is living on fixed income, it's inappropriate to make them pay thousands of dollars and waste years in court.
Yep,
So,
thank you.
But yeah, I would like to see a pathway without a car involved in it.
Loud and clear. Yes, sir. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am, come on up.
I just have a question. So, and I saw this, since you're talking about DOT and stuff like that, and I know that the pathway for the Beach Drive pathway is, that's changing because of DOT didn't transfer over to the city. But I saw on one of the posts about that Chevron had been requesting that Beach Drive be widened. And so what can us as citizens do, and what can the city do to prevent that? Because that would be disastrous for that. I think that, I think that they need, whether the city does anything with the path or not, that's separate. But I think that, Business 98 needs to be rerouted for safety reasons. I live on 9th Street, which is Business 98, and Beach Drive is just, it's a beautiful area. It's
Yeah.
it's residential. It's not for tankers.
Yeah.
So what can we
Totally.
do?
Jonathan, you want to talk through what our abilities are as a city to change or to change speed limits or anything on a DOT road? What can we do?
We can only ask. And if DOT wanted to widen their own roads, they have right-of-way space to do that, and that would be their prerogative.
And we can't stop it.
Yeah, I don't think you need to widen Beach Drive. Beach Drive's lanes are wider right now than 231 and US Highway 98. They're over 13 foot. And so I haven't seen that they want to widen it.
The turn at Frankfurt.
Oh,
Is
yeah,
the turns.
all the turns do fail, and you made a good point, ma'am. It's not just Beach Drive. We tend to focus on Beach Drive, but it's Beck, it's 10th, it's Chestnut, it's 9th, it's that part of Frankfurt, and that turn fails.
When
in
you say
Beach
turn,
Drive.
tell them what turn fails
It
mean.
means basically that the 18-wheelers, the tankers, cannot safely make that turn without stopping, coming off of 9th to travel southbound on Frankfurt Avenue, or to travel both east and west at that curve. You have to wait for the.
And to go around,
Let me-
They
the
have to,
whole, yeah.
they have to
there's-
stop and let cars get by because they cross over the line in order to make that
Yeah, there's
turn.
actually, if you count them, there's probably, 5? There's at
So-
Frankfurt, at 9th, at,
So Dolores, if I could explain, this is
Turn-
where,
explain
this
what
is
turn
where you know, in the dialogue, so we did a turn analysis with them as well.
Engineers.
Engineers did, so this isn't something that the city's done, or even really from an initiative just from FDOT. But Frankfurt and Beach, that fails, so how to make that not fail?
Well, when you say fails, that means an engineer comes in and says, for a truck of this size to make the turn, they have to go over the sidewalk, across the curb, into the other lane.
Into the other lane
Then
of
it
traffic.
fails.
Yeah,
Right.
so how
That's
they
what we
would
mean.
fix that is, the only way to fix that, to keep a truck from going across, would be, you know, purchasing additional property, expanding that into that, from that lot from there. The same thing exists at Truesdale, so if you think about that turn, in order to not go onto the oncoming lane of traffic, you would have to cut into the property to make that turn, and so on and so forth. So that, that is something that, yes, like there have been multiple requests, I know, from specifically semi-users. I think you named one very specifically, to improve and increase, to keep that level of commerce as well as expand it. And so whether that would be a 4-lane highway, I don't know that that's in the work plan, but continuing.
I've not heard that.
I have not
Yeah.
heard that, but continuing expansion and improvement for the safety of commerce, yes, is a priority and objective. Not necessarily from this board's perspective.
Right, so as citizens, we should just call FDOT.
Yeah, I think, you know,
Yeah.
letting people know, sending us letters that we can forward on.
Okay.
You know, I mean, if you think about, I mean, I think you live in one of those perfect examples. 9th Street, is that really a commerce road? There's no commercial activity anywhere on that road. Why is this even a highway at this point? And the federal government agreed with you. So, and it's their road too. And so, you know, they looked at it and they said, you know what, this really isn't part of our strategic network. Sure, we'll transfer it over to you. It was only through further advocation that ultimately that process stopped, because I think this board's intent multiple times, granted, there's 2 new members of it, but I know 3 of us have been vocally supportive of a transfer of that road. So,
Okay, all right, well.
Thank you.
It's on my agenda.
yes, thank you, Lord.
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Since DOT, it's all good DOT.
Yeah, this is all DOT.
Good morning.
Hey, you invited it, we're talking about the DOT. Good morning, sir.
Hank Pickin, 820 West Beach Drive. I had come down here with the intention of talking about where we were in the negotiation with FDOT about this, the infamous path. But sitting here and listening to these folks about the safety issues, I think we all come to the bone-jarring conclusion that the city has far more needs than a need for a multi-use path on West Beach Drive. It seems to me that there's $7 million of unspent resources that could be transferred if the legislature will transfer. FDOT can't do it. It has to be done by the legislature. But for this group and you to go to the legislature and say, let's take the $7 million out of the path on West Beach Drive and put it into these safety issues that are being raised here, put proper lights on, proper crosswalks and everything else. And I am certain that if you were to do another referendum and say, where would you like to spend the $7 million? You want to spend it on a multi-use path on West Beach Drive, or do you want to spend it on a whole lot of safety in this city? And if you look at the original grant, which was the $8 million, it was actually $9.4 million, where the city was going to put 1.4 into it. That was entitled Sidewalk Improvements in Panama City. And it isn't until you get back down into the very, very last pages of that grant that it specifies West Beach Drive. So certainly the intent was, from the legislature standpoint, was to have those funds available for street all around Panama City. And having said that, I would think it'd be very easy for you folks to put together some sort of a referendum. I don't think you need one. I mean, you just look around and see the number of people that are talking about the great needs, and a list of folks who have had accidents, and some of them resulting, unfortunately, in deaths, would weigh pretty heavily on a decision from the legislature. And having said that, I want to spend just a couple minutes on West Beach Drive, because it is at a standstill and at a cross point. What we have now is a standoff between the city and FDOT. FDOT has put several requirements out for the city. If they're going to build this multi-use path on the south side of West Beach, it has to be limited in dimensions. And at parts of the right-of-way from Dagama east, that right-of-way shrinks to as much as 3 feet, maybe 4, but at most 5.
With all due respect, it's not less than 4. I've looked at the lines.
You know, one of the
Okay,
Go ahead,
okay.
please.
4.
Let's talk
4.
facts, okay.
The existing path on the north side is 5 feet wide. So you're going to end up with a path on the south side connecting Dagama with Florida Avenue that could be as narrow as 4 feet. And
I'm not suggesting it's not safe. I
and,
just want
and the 4 feet could be as narrow as 4 feet.
One of the main
would have to be.
patterns-
I'm sorry.
Your time's up by a minute already, so you're 4 minutes into the 3 minutes. One of the big patterns that we see is DOT, which is a great organization, really prioritizes moving cars and moving cars very fast. That's really their jobs. And it's our job to push back on them to say we want roads safer. Because speed and lane size equals danger for pedestrians. How many pedestrian incidents have we had on Beach Drive recently? I had a friend get hit by a car on a crossing one of the
Yeah,
roads, jogging.
I
She
believe it was
hospitalized.
40-ish
That was 6
incidents.
months ago.
Yeah, that was 6 months ago.
So 40-ish
More
issues
sensitive.
on Beach Drive. So it's not, we have lots of issues in Panama City, but getting pedestrian safety is one of our bigger issues, especially on DOT roads. And we're trying to get them to prioritize people over cars, which means we have to drive slower. But on those roads, we have no control. We have no control over the lighting, the speeds, and the safety. And so we need the community to really push us and DOT to look out for your safety and your children's safety. That's the biggest thing. The right-of-way on Beach Drive is big. How big is it in certain spots? I mean,
Bigger than the interstate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wider than 231, wider than I-10.
But there
And
are
not-
no shoulders on West Beach Drive. All of these other roads you're talking about have good-sized shoulders.
Yeah.
There's gutters.
And they're double lane, not single lane.
So the other problem with DOT and government in general is we move slow, and federal government and state government moves even slower than local government, so it takes a long time. And what happens a lot of times in government is you have a plan, and everyone gets excited, and then something new comes up and we get distracted. And so we need constant pushing from citizens of what you prioritize for us. And we need that on all the roads. So that's one of the biggest patterns you'll hear in these conversations.
I don't want to be crass, but I mean, you can see this happen all around the country. If you allow it, cars will literally run over your communities.
Yes.
And, our job is to not just look out for just those that are traversing through, but those of us that live here. And part of that process is looking at what the need is of communities. And for us, there is a huge need of people that don't have vehicles. We have the largest population of citizens in all of the county that do not have vehicles. So what does that mean? That means they're biking more, that means they're walking more, that means they're doing things that don't even happen in other communities. And so the point is that every road facility needs a view of the actual people that walk it, utilize it, and making it safer for not just cars, but people too.
I would submit that any building of a 4-foot path on the south side of West Beach Drive is going to be no buffer, be right up against the curb, and all of these trucks going by.
Oh, yeah, we want to stop
with-
that for sure.
With
I hope you hear that loud and clear. We want to stop
significant
trucks on
safety
Beach Drive.
problems. Plus the fact,
Yeah.
anybody that wants to use that path is going to have to cross West Beach Drive to get to the path.
Yeah.
And I walk my dog out on West Beach Drive every day. I'd much rather walk across Moore Circle or Balboa or any of those side streets than I would think about taking my life in my hands and crossing West Beach
We
Drive.
definitely want you to be safe.
So I think the question really is why? You know, why is 11-foot lanes not acceptable? Why are we not following the own standards that are set beside their own standards of our state government? The reason why is we have people that are advocating to continue to utilize it for trucks, that maybe don't want sidewalks, that maybe want something different. That's the reason why the project is having to change in this fluctuation. It doesn't have anything to do with this board, local elected officials, or even, you know, the majority of citizens. We've seen that. And so we've got a majority referendum that says, hey, this is something we'd like to see move forward. You have a united board. So the question is, why are we not following our own standards? And I think what you'll find at the end of that equation is there's more powerful advocation that is silencing the even voices of the elected officials and the citizens that live here.
I'd much rather see a nice wide path on the south side than a 4-foot path, but your advocation supports truckers on that road. That's what your advocation does, is you're supporting trucks, big trucks on that road.
I'd rather have trucks going up and down that road
Than people in strollers.
than I would the
And dogs
idiots
and puppy dogs.
that'll often ride up and down that side.
Yeah.
There's a
Air
5-foot
braking.
path that exists on the north side.
Yeah, a friend of mine got hit on it the other day, jogging. She got hit on it with a car. Her name's Crystal. She was in the hospital for 2 days.
He was on the path?
She was on a sidewalk.
She's on the sidewalk that you're talking about, that
Crossing
you're
the
saying is
47.
so safe.
Yeah.
And so we can continue this conversation. Hank, I love you, I respect you, I'm glad you're one of our citizens that are here. But the fact of the matter is, the advocation that you're proposing is not making it better, it's making it worse. It's making it worse for you as a resident, it's making it worse for us as a city.
I have never, ever suggested that we put a path on the south side of West Beach Drive.
Oh, that's clear.
I've never suggested that. What I'm telling you is that the FDOT's restrictions that they told you about several months ago makes the original design of that path dead on arrival.
Makes it worse.
And
I agree with you.
well, it doesn't make it worse, it makes it ridiculous, because what you've got is a situation where you wanted to build that path for multi-use, and it's now shrunk down at parts to less
And
than the
why
existing
is
path.
that?
Why is that? That's because
Why are they saying no?
that is the state-owned right-of-way.
And their
it is-
specifications allow for 11-foot lanes.
So
The
DOT has
FDOT
has
does
a
not,
design standard called
the
complete
11-foot,
streets. DOT has a design standard called complete streets. So when DOT or the city or whoever designs a road, they don't just make it up. There's actually a framework of what is an appropriate size road for neighborhoods versus bigger roads, 4-lane roads, 6-lane roads. And that road is a neighborhood road that is designed like the interstate, which is why people drive so fast on it, and why people get hit so often is, again, speed and lane width actually deteriorates safety. And so that's part of the problem, is if that road was a little narrower, you would feel a little more apprehension. You would say, I really better pay attention because I'm going to hit somebody if I don't. That feeling of I should pay attention as a driver, that little bit of uncomfortability actually equates to safety. When you feel like you can be on your phone, that means the road's very dangerous. And that's when people get hit. So that when we talk about lane widths, that's what we're talking about.
again, there is no shoulders on West Beach Drive. All these other roads where you're saying 11 feet is wide enough is fine. They're double lanes rather than single lanes, and also there are huge shoulders.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Anyone else?
I'll just add, we've talked about Ninth and we've talked about Beach Drive, but we've also had incidents on Beck Avenue.
Frankfurt?
And Frankfurt.
I've got
and I know-
video of people getting hit on Beck Avenue. And I think what we're seeing is we're seeing a community that wants to walk more, wants to enjoy the outdoors. We live in a beautiful area. Then maybe they have to because of socioeconomics, but then there's also people that they get to because they want to. And so we need to incorporate a complete view of the citizens that live here, and that includes more than cars.
Yes, sir.
George Carruthers. Did somebody mention West Beach Drive?
Welcome, George.
So with the new proposed plans, I mean, you can blame the DOT, blame the governor, blame the President of the United States for that matter, but the issue is, it is what it is. The road's kind of going to remain the same. And to propose to navigate a new plan around that restriction is ludicrous. So when you've got pets and children walking right up against the road on a 4-foot sidewalk, I wouldn't want my kids walking down there. I wouldn't want my pets walking down there. You don't know what they're going to do. There's over 13,000 cars a day that run down that road. That's pretty heavy. That's pretty high density. And therefore, you can't hardly change that, regardless of the width of the road. So there was a term used many, many years ago, unsafe at any speed. And I think that's exactly what we've got with regard to the path. You can't get to the path without crossing the street. And I don't care whether you put it 10 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour, you still got to cross the street, and that becomes unsafe. The second point I'd like to make is that West Beach Drive and Beck Avenue are two different, totally different animals. Whatever you want, whatever merchants want on Beck Avenue is different priorities than the Beach Drive residents opposing the sidewalk. So don't commingle those as the merchants wanting to see the path on West Beach Drive as part of this project. They want to see what they want to see on Beck Avenue. So as far as I'm concerned, let them go at what they want. The residents of Beach Drive don't want the path, and they're going to continue to pursue that.
I would, yeah. Thank you.
Good morning.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Courtney Scruggs, and I'm here to change topics, mostly because I have to go. But I'm here in support of the Robert and Mary Kane Field being used to its fullest potential. I recently started a homeschool PE class for our growing homeschool community. And I just wanted to start out by saying that St. Andrew's Soccer Club has been incredible for us and very generous. And they've opened their doors up and allowed us to use their indoor facility at no cost. And it's allowed us to have that field right nearby to access and to allow more space for our kids to play the big games, like they like tag and dodgeball and all those. But then they also have their indoor space to get out of the weather, and we've been able to utilize their equipment and for all sports. So all year round, they're able to be exposed to all different types of sports. But I believe that the soccer club is showing true community partnership in that way. And they just saw that there was a need, and they said yes, and no strings attached. It has let me kind of create and build that homeschool PE class. And so I think that, I just want to thank the soccer club and also thank the commissioners for considering, I know that there's a lot of talk with the Robert and Mary Kane Field, but maybe, forming that community and keeping that field alive and utilized to its highest potential. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney.
Who wants to go next? I was a homeschooler too.
Courtney, when is that class, just so people know?
Oh, every Monday at 1 p.m.
1 p.m.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Good morning, Commissioners. Cameron Fuqua, President of St. Andrews Soccer Club. Thank you for your time this morning. As we kind of see this morning, first want to start by thanking and acknowledging the work each of you have done. This has been a demanding year on Panama City, and the fact that you continue showing up for this community matters to a lot of families, including ours within the soccer club. Back in early October, you asked St. Andrews Soccer Club to gather community input on our proposal for Robert and Mary Kane Park. We took that seriously. Since then, we've had a town hall at St. Luke's, met individually with numerous residents, community leaders, and most recently with Commissioner Lucas and City Manager Hayes. We appreciate their time and willingness to meet with us and discuss. At the same time, moving this forward has also been quite challenging and difficult. Late in our fall season, parking access became restricted at the field, which, as we've noted earlier, created some real safety concerns in that area for families trying to pick up their kids and walk across streets and everything else. Our open play, which is a free community event to any child, has been canceled due to the actions of numerous individuals. And as of today, nearly 150 kids still do not have a secured field, safe field for the spring. Additionally, we've been informed that we're not invited to the next community input meeting this coming week. We also understand that the city has hired a new Parks and Rec director, which is great news for Panama City long term, but we've been told that no decisions about Robert and Mary King Park will move forward until he arrives, evaluates the field, and provides guidance. Unfortunately, that may not happen until January. And respectfully, our families cannot live in that limbo that long. We cannot organize a season on maybes. We cannot leave 150 young players and their parents without answers until that last minute. I want to clearly and simply explain what we're actually promising. Right now, the field could be rented for organized athletics as many hours as there are in the day by anyone who books it. There is no limit. We want the city to enter a resolution that restricts the amount of organized athletics and guarantee the rest of the time to be public use. So that way, presumably if there's 4,800 hours in the year, 4,200 of them can be guaranteed public use only. And I'm recognizing the time, and I'm trying to be as brief and quick as I can with this and answer questions as well. I'll also note we've provided several creative options to add to our proposal as needed. We've proposed a Robert and Mary King Scholarship Program for residents within the Hill community. We've proposed a mandatory annual history session, so every player who learns the history of the field and the family. We've proposed donating a playground. We've also proposed donating into a capital improvement fund over the term of our agreement. It seems that at this time, none of those have caught the attention positively as we had hoped. So today, we're respectfully asking that the full commission step in, help establish a clear path forward, a path that caps the organized athletic use of the field, guarantees public access, gives our kids stability, and honors the Kane legacy, and doesn't leave this decision resting with one person. Let this commission be the one that says, we won't let this field fall apart, we won't let these kids fall through the cracks, and we won't let this responsibility rest on one person alone.
Yes, thank you.
So I'd like to respond. First of all, Mr. Fuqua, at our meeting at St. Luke, we agreed as a community there, both sides, that we would have a meeting. You took offense that one person would be a part of that meeting, and you didn't want to participate. So I've moved forward to meet with you, wanted to meet with you and city staff to talk specifically about your proposal. You didn't want the city assistant city managers there. So every time I've offered, let's move forward in the vision that I see of bringing community together. And I explained this to you in our meeting. I said that my vision is for soccer club and community to sit together and come through with a decision together. Because the bigger issue in our community, we've heard it here, it's Truesdale Park, it's the marina, it's the Robert and Mary King Park. Our citizens don't want to lose our public facilities. And so the crux of the matter is that you are proposing that for a $40,000 resodding of the field, you get a 10-year exclusivity of soccer. Of soccer. You only want soccer to be the sport played for 10 years at the Robert and Mary King Park.
You've already misstated the proposal.
Is that
though.
not wrong?
Yeah, it is wrong.
So
Yes,
tell
ma'am.
me what it is. What are you asking of specifically for the agreement? You want to spend $40,000, resod the field, and what are you asking for in return?
So I think you're also missing a very key point of the proposal, which is that in addition to that $40,000 resodding, we also take over the maintenance of that field, which includes, frankly, probably tens of thousands of dollars a year in addition. So that is a key part of the proposal that's very important.
Okay, so, but
Yes,
you are
and
asking
so-
for a 10-year agreement, and that's what the community
and-
has issue with.
Well, again, the other thing that is misstated is it is not an agreement. We are not asking for an agreement. We are asking for a resolution from the city. We are not a signatory on that. It is a resolution from the city that says that this field should be primarily public use, and that this field should primarily be used for public gatherings and public use. However, we will carve out a very small percentage of hours for organized athletic use.
And you're asking that it only be soccer?
That is
correct?
correct, ma'am,
Yes.
because within the city of Panama City, there is no dedicated soccer field. And this would be the only dedicated soccer field. I am going to go back to what I mentioned a moment ago, which is what I came here today to speak about, which is I need short-term solutions. I need help from this commission, from this city manager, to step in and provide short-term solutions for the kids. I understand there are long-term solutions to be had, and that ultimately needs to be had, but also in the interim, we cannot cancel open play because of individuals being upset and angry.
And
we
it's not just
cannot
that, Mr.
have
Fuqua. You
we
are not
cannot
open.
have
You
a
are not open to
situation
considering any other
where
field.
the
You only
kids are
want
being
the
restricted
Oak
in their
Grove field.
access. And that cannot happen because of one individual.
And it's not one individual. It is not one individual. Ask the folks who are
Ma'am,
here.
you've stated that our organization, and verbatim, and Manager Hayes, if I misstate this, please chime
I
in.
have a recording of what was said, so you don't have to.
You recorded our meeting? the
I
other day?
did.
Fantastic. I would love a copy of that. With that said, it was affirmatively stated in that meeting that if our organization does not meet in an intimate setting,
That is not what I said. And that is.
then you can
because
provide that
Because you
recording.
have
Is that what I said?
refused, the meeting that I offered has not been held. I met with you individually. I will meet with the community again because you refused to come to the table.
That
You
is,
want to-
ma'am, that is not factually correct. I have
You
absolutely
said
come
you
to the
will not
table.
meet with a certain individual. You wanted-
Absolutely, I will not. I will not
Yes.
meet with an individual who calls my wife the devil. And
You-
if you believe that is appropriate, then you have a problem, ma'am. And if you commissioners believe that's appropriate, to force an organization to meet with somebody who calls somebody's wife the devil, that is unacceptable.
And
And
what
I
I've
will not
also
stand here
said
and
to
enjoy
you,
that.
and what I've also
No, ma'am.
said to you in that meeting.
That is all I had to say. You all have 150 Panama City youth. I'm talking to you, Commissioner Street, you, Commissioner Ranger, and you, Mayor Branch, not you, Commissioner Lucas, because you know what? There are those many Panama City youth who are looking to your all's leadership to help you all. And you all are allowing this one individual to destroy that organization.
This
And
one
I will
individual
have
is
that.
not destroying any organization. You are refusing to consider any other.
Whoa. Cameron, just let's all just take a breath. Just take a breath. Let's take a breath. There's a lot of angst. I'll just say there's a lot of angst at the soccer club, unfairly in my opinion, and it's really our fault that we haven't gotten that park back together since the hurricane. That's our fault. And a lot of that angst is being directed towards them. That's our issue. That's our fault. And so a lot of that angst should be focused at us of why wasn't this park prioritized after the hurricane? And I think we've gotten into a really messy conversation with people who really have good intentions. And it's become very adversarial, and I wish we had found a process long ago. One of the other angst that anyone who deals with a city like ours, none of us up here actually speak on the behalf of the city. I don't have any extra authority that Commissioner Lucas or anyone else up here has. Well, except for Jonathan. Whoa. And so whenever you're negotiating with the city,
Mark, can you just go make sure everything's okay, please, sir? Thank you.
A lot of the frustration that anyone who negotiates with a city like ours, where no one speaks on behalf of the city, is none of us actually are in charge. We all cumulatively are in charge together, and then we direct the city manager. And you see that frustration. It would be like buying a piece of property from 5 heirs of a family who don't speak to each other. We can't even speak to each other about matters unless we're up here. So a lot of that frustration comes when you're dealing with 5 different people who can't talk together. And that creates a lot of angst. And it's become very adversarial, as you can see now. And I wish we could have rewound time and found a process 6 months ago. But you're seeing that with Truesdale Park, which is Josh doesn't speak on behalf of the city, I don't speak on behalf of the city, and we're all just trying to find a path that's friendly and cordial, and it gets very heated at times.
And I'll piggyback on what you're saying now. I think that's one of the things where, it's like in my communication, even about Truesdale, step back to the beginning and let's start working from that point. And hopefully there's everybody's trying to solve, just like you do with your own house. And I've had this conversation multiple times with it. We have a limited amount of resources to do things. We have to measure priorities. We have to we're always being creative, with the budgets process. And, but one of the things I will say specifically about parks, and I think Janice, affectionately said it correctly with the marina too, these are public spaces, and because they're public spaces, they attract a different level of input than you would on, just say, hey, if the city had an office building someplace, or even frankly here, say we were gonna lease out a quarter of the office space here, it would be completely different, a different level of public input in this case versus, when it comes to a public park. So I would just communicate to anyone that's seeking to engage with the city on our public facilities, and this is not anything, is it's very important to realize there's a diverse amount of opinions. I represent 8,000 citizens. So like that's just in the area that I represent. And each one of these do too. And then Alan's got, 40,000, 45,000. And so, and everybody's got a different opinion on those things. Like there's very few times that we ever agree 100%. I don't know that I've ever came to the table and said, hey, we all 100% agree with this. Even with trucks driving on major residential streets, we don't all agree on that. And so our job from a commission perspective is try to build consensus, try to collaborate with each other, and that is, it can at times be difficult. And so anyway, that's why I'd like, in my mind, taking a step back is actually taking a step forward, because it allows us to kind of create a process that is unified and that does have our citizens as a seat at the table, as well as private partners. So.
And Addie, I mentioned this in emails with Mr. Marshall and many other people. Whenever I'd apply to an email, I'd always add other people so they would hear how I would respond to things. I'm one of the coaches on the football team for the Glenwood Rattlers, and we use Daffin Park. And even, I don't know how the city collaborates with that organization. It's a nonprofit. Those were originally baseball fields. There were like 3 baseball fields, and so that field has changed over time. And even the Glenwood Rattlers, that's technically in Millville. And so, but we don't experience angst in the neighborhood, and I think it's because that park was put back together sooner. And there's that angst of like, are we being forgotten about? But we're in that, football coaches are in that park. We practice on the baseball fields. And so you see that level of collaboration with the neighborhood and the city and an organization who really does care about kids. I really do think this organization cares about kids, and none of them there. That's not how they make their money. They all have other real jobs, and even the Glenwood Rattlers on a Saturday will gate the park off and charge to come into it. But if someone says, "I'm here for the swing set," we let them through, because it's a mechanism to keep the organization going. J.C. Carlisle always says it's all about the kids, and that's what we're really talking about here. Is we're all about the kids and how we do what's right for the kids and the neighborhood, and I don't really have the answer to that. So,
well, I would just like to add, Mr. Mayor, for the benefit of the commission and the public, I didn't, and Commissioner Lucas was there, I did not indicate that any one of y'all has the sole authority to make any decision. What I said was that the commission at large does look to each commissioner and their ward to kind of lead on that issue and to be point on that issue, and then bring that to the broader board to consider and move it forward. So, the commission is looking to Commissioner Street for Truesdale. We're looking to Commissioner Lucas for Robert Mary Kane Park, and for Joe Moody Harris. We'll look to Commissioner Hughes for the Garden Club and for Millville Waterfront Park.
Yeah, they're really like neighborhood specialists, right? Like I'm not from every neighborhood, and so the best I can do is go, what does that neighborhood want? And so for me, a lot of it's like, well, what does the neighborhood want? And I really sort of default to the commissioner of that ward to kind of say, well, here's what the neighborhood wants, because that, they know that neighborhood oftentimes better than I do. So that's really that what the indication I believe was. Yes, sir.
All right, so good morning. I'm Stephen Boswell. So thank you for your time, Mayor and Commissioners. Going into this meeting, I didn't really know what I was going to say. I just have a few bullet points here. I'm also, so my sons play for St. Andrews, and I'm one of the assistant coaches as well. So I'll be brief, but the one thing I kind of want to touch on is, as somebody who also went to the meeting, the community meeting a few weeks ago, you know, it's clear to me that the city doesn't have a budget to improve or maintain Robert and Mary Kane Park. So to Cameron's point, you know, the intent here is for us to work with the residents to find a solution that's mutually beneficial for everybody. You spoke of, you know, the frustration of that process happening, and I think that comes from a few things, but, you know, the one thing I would really propose to the commission here is, and the community, is asking for an honest effort from all parties to find that mutually beneficial solution. The reality is there are narratives and assumptions being made about the intent of our proposal. And there's a lot of false information that's kind of undermining our goals to achieve that mutually beneficial end. So I really just ask for transparency from the city. I think to your point, Mayor, about improving communication. You know, the park itself is, while, you know, dedicated to the Hill residents, the Hill is a very small portion of the area that park serves. And about 40% of the participants that participate in the club live within a mile of that park. So really just asking for transparency. You know, there's a lot of narratives and things that are being pushed about St. Andrews being the ones controlling the gates. Even to this day, prioritization of the city budget, I think, is important for the residents. That transparency and honesty of, hey, we hear you. We know that you are looking for improvement of this park and it's been neglected, but the reality is we don't, as a city, have the resources to do that right now. I think that's where a referendum, as Cameron mentioned, is a way to meet that. And then last thing, you know, another thing that I see is, you know, the soccer goals that are there being belonging to the club. So that is another narrative that's being pushed. It's not received well by the community of St. Andrews moving in and trying to push out the residents of that community. So that's all I have to say. I appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
If I may.
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
I have nothing against the St. Andrews Soccer Club. I want to find a resolution for the club and the community. The sticking point, as I've said, is the terms of the agreement. If we can talk about that, okay? The community rightfully feels that that park has been neglected, that things have been promised over decades prior to my being on the commission, prior to the St. Andrews Soccer Club coming to there. You all have enjoyed being on that field for 18 months. If soccer were the problem, if St. Andrews Soccer Club was the problem, that would have been disrupted long before now. So it is the terms of the agreement, and we have yet to talk about that. We're talking about who can be at a meeting, who can't be at a meeting, and so forth. When we simply can sit down together and reason together, and that's what I presented to Mr. Fuqua, both at the meeting that you were at, let's sit down together, and then with the meeting with just the city manager. He has taken offense to the fact that I have said I'm not gonna meet with him individually. My intention was never to meet with people individually. It's a community issue. We as a community should sit down and reason together, and that is what I've intended to do. Since this has come out, we have learned, and he agreed at the meeting that we had this past week, that that field was not properly restored to recreational play per DEP guidelines. Just beneath the surface, you find debris. That's not safe, and that's incumbent upon the city to make sure that we have a safe field that has been declared as safe. Yes, as he mentioned, we have a new Parks, Culture, and Recreation Director coming on board. It is not, I think, fair to, in this instance right now, say, here you go. Here's a deal the city has never done with any other field, and you're inheriting that. we've hired him because of his expertise. He needs to have time to weigh in on that, I think, as well. Now, when you look at the city, there are other fields we are willing to look at in the immediacy of the urgency of getting you field play by February, if you're willing to be open to that while we resolve what the issues have been shown to be at the Oak Grove Field at the Robert and Mary King Park.
Yeah, and more perspective. I remember being a citizen. I mean, I still am a citizen, but not being on this side.
You're a super citizen.
A super citizen. You get blamed for everything. I just hear the city talk about grants all the time. Like, grants? And so, a 30-second overview, and feel free to correct me about budget, is, property taxes, ad valorem, merchant fee, all that really just pays for public safety.
The bulk of it.
The bulk of it. So we, another $80, $90 million, most of your parks and things are paid for usually through a grant. And so we're constantly, that's why I assumed as a citizen there was like this giant pot of money that the city just simply wasn't spending on certain things. And that really isn't the case. We're constantly trying to go get grants from the state and federal government because that's how we don't have a state income tax. And so you go to Alabama or Georgia, they just get their money through a state income tax. We're always going to Tallahassee going, hey, we got this cool project. Can we get some funding for it? And that's really what takes so long. And then the money is, designated for a certain use. And then often you go like, well, why is this park getting money and this one's not? It's like, well, the grant that started a year and a half ago is just now getting funded. And so that often breeds a lot of confusion on like, well, why are certain things not getting done? It's because most of what we operate off of is grants and appropriations. Did I say that correctly?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yes, sir.
And while he's coming up, just a very tangible example was we actually got some ARPA money, American
And lots of
Rescue Plan
acronyms.
Act.
Have you noticed all the acronyms?
American Rescue Plan Act, and that was to build the Snug Harbor, which is that boat ramp in Millville.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Virgil Marshall, Robert and Mary King Park. Mayor, you said it best. The city doesn't build community parks for soccer. They build community parks for the community that may have some soccer usage. Any of you all that grew up playing on that field, raise your hand.
It was a baseball field, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was festivals from the beginning. Okay, for people that are a little bit older than me.
Watch
Watch
yourself.
Listen. They remember.
You just
We
lost
have
a
we
lot
have
of
that on
support.
camera if you want that for evidence.
They're turning on you.
They remember. Hey, they remember
You're
the
gonna get right out of
highlights,
the hill.
the May Day Festival. Okay, so
Is there anybody younger than you over there?
yes, there is. So to handle the issue, if he wants immediate access to a field to build his program, if he's proposing $40,000, I'm sure somebody in Bay County will rent him a field that he can get his program going. And that will give us an opportunity to develop, find funding and everything like that. If we go back to the Adopt a Park, we use a code. For instance, if it was a Al Helm Dog Park, it would be PC for Panama City, his initials, and then DP. And then people could donate to that. Same thing for Robert and Mary King Park and all the stuff like this. We'll get the funding. They'll have a place to build their program, and we can look at the field. One, is it safe? Okay, is it actually safe for anybody? Okay, because as a resident, and we can all tell you, most of us can see that field from our house. We know what was dumped out there. But what's on the report and what we saw, there's a big gap. Okay, so we need to make sure that it's safe for anybody to play on there. And then for those people that in elementary school, amphitheater, playground for the kids, a basketball court, even though Cameron did offer another solution for the basketball court, but the reason we want it on the field is because most people don't know that Mary King hit a half-court shot in high school that got her a scholarship. And since it's named after her, not only that, back to the other issue of having to cross 15th Street, all of their kids and grandkids and great-grandkids got across 15th Street to play basketball. So let's put a court on there and we'll all be happy. We can exist. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? And my dad taught Mr. Marshall at Mowat at middle school back in the 80s.
I just want to be invited to when y'all go after him. I want to watch that.
Anyone else? We still, yes, ma'am, come on up. You gotta come to the mic. You gotta come to the mic.
Only because it's online and we're recording it, yeah.
You need to tell me, Mr. Peters.
If I can just ask a question, I just want to kind of summarize, because we don't get to talk. Basically, what I kind of heard through all of that, I think the only tension that the soccer club is in is what to do in February. And I think that there's a willingness to look at alternatives and what can be done. This information you said that we got debris underneath the field, that's new to me. So I did not know that. So
You're gonna like scrape the.
I knew what it was used for. I mean,
Yeah.
like, obviously I was here during the storm,
Yeah.
but I didn't realize that there wasn't.
Yeah,
a
so what I've been able to
restoration.
learn is that there was dirt put out there, I don't want to use the wrong terms, but there was some attention given to making it play ready. But there are stipulations from DEP that, you test the soil, you do different things.
That wasn't done.
And I have not gotten evidence yet that was done.
Yeah, that was put on my radar, I think, Wednesday or Thursday. There was a prior email that Commissioner sent in, but there was removal of a top layer and then fresh soil brought in, and under former superintendent, they put it back, irrigation and all that. But we're trying to find out if there was the appropriate testing done, and so that's what we're trying to find out.
Can you and I take a look at, so we got hints it's almost done.
Yeah.
But I was out there this morning coming in, and obviously we've had a lot of rain. It's just a giant mud puddle of where we put the field there, and we've got some trees that are out. So it may be a good time to look at, hey, if we need this much demand in fields, maybe we need to look at also just, is there a way just to make a quick field there too?
That hint,
So,
okay, we can do that.
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't want to detract from what you're trying to do, Janice, at all. So if that does, then.
Well,
then
I've said
over
from the
that, but I'm
beginning,
just-
Josh, I want a win-win.
Yeah.
Okay, not a win-lose, a win-win.
Yeah.
And so that means taking into consideration what is of concern to all parties and how best to do that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Water, I'm sorry about my voice. It's been very educational being here, and I'm glad I came, and I thank Liz Blakely for inviting me. But I, like a lot of citizens, probably thought what you were thinking about the pot of the end of the rainbow, that there is a big amount of money, and why is this not being done for this and that's not being done for that? Is there a way to find out, or is there scheduled or any kind of documentation we can find out what grants were written for when and when that money might be allocated? Like Joe Moody Park, he was talking about, I live square in front of Joe Moody Park. And I myself said I was gonna write the city or code enforcement, because I live on the 9th Street side, and it's just grown up. You have homeless people living there right by the railroads. And we have Woodsfield. I'd like to know when or if there's been grants for that field being open. But Joe Moody Harris Park, which I'd like to talk to you more about, is personal to me because it brings my property value down. It's built up, it's grown up, nobody's doing anything. People are dumping trash there on my side. And I just wanna know what's being done, or is there a way to find out what's been done, or if the grants have been proposed for the money to be allocated to those particular parks that's personal to me,
Yeah,
Woodsfield and Joe Moody Harris Park.
Can you put together an email for us? That'd be great.
Yeah, I do want to acknowledge one thing. It's the encampment, is that on, like, is it right beside the railroad, or is it on city property? Can you tell? Like, the railroad's owned by the railroad.
Yeah.
So is it close to the railroad?
Where they build up with the trees
Yeah.
and the debris, and it's on the 9th Street. You have 9th Street on the side of Sherman. I'm on 9th Street off of East Avenue.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
I know
Joe
what
Moody
you're
Hart
talking
Park, yeah. So on my street, there's only 4 houses.
Mm-hmm.
one of which has been abandoned, and I've had called for code enforcement about that. But the buildup and where the homeless people are is right in front of my home, and I work at night. I get
And
off
your
at-
and the railroad is right in front of
there.
you.
Yeah. And I get off at 12 o'clock midnight, so I never know who's in the woods or who's coming out, because that has happened. And so it's a safety issue for me, as well as bringing down the property value of my home.
Yeah, one
Okay.
common pattern, and you point out too, is whenever citizens are not using things, bad activity sort of moves those areas.
Right.
Whatever the bad activity is. A Beach Drive has a history of people camping out on the bay and hiding.
It's gotten
and
better
having
as more
parties.
people have used it.
So as
That's
more
better.
people come in, the activity moves away, and so we want activity in all the parks
Right.
because it keeps that activity, good
There was a-
activity keeps bad activity out typically.
There was a time when I could actually sleep outside in my yard. And now I'm almost locked and loaded when I get out my car. Because I'm scared, because there is no activity over there, and it's bringing in people. And everyone needs somewhere to stay. I get that. I'm the biggest advocate for that. But also, I got to take care of me and mine. And so I'm just trying to say, what I wanted, my initial question is there a way to find out if money has been allocated to those areas, and if so, when will we see it?
Yeah, we'll get you an email with all that
Well,
information.
I actually spoke
Oh.
to it earlier. We actually, you might have stepped out, but we have a $1.3 million grant that was just signed by the state on Thursday for Joe Moody Harris Park.
Okay.
So sometime in late January, early February, Commissioner Lucas and I will hold, with the new Parks and Rec Director, a community meeting to start that process. But this time next year, our goal and our full expectation is Joe Moody Harris will be fully restored.
But in the interim, can you ask someone to go out and take a look at the
Yeah,
situations
we absolutely do
you've
that,
been
and
describing?
if we need to flag it for the railroad, we'll
That's-
certainly do that as well.
That's what I was gonna draw everybody's attention to. So obviously, I think Janice and I both, we share a long stretch of railroad. In St. Andrews, it operates as our main drainage conduit. And Millville, and in those areas, I think there's a lot of pedestrian activity and maybe some areas that need to be addressed for transient activity too. But we've got legal that's reviewing an ordinance for us to look like that will create a standard of how the railroad is to be maintained, both what is allowed federally and what we require both locally, just to provide clarity to their organization, but also our own team. And so just when that comes forward after it finishes the legal review, hope to have the commission's support on making that better.
Okay.
So.
The other pattern of great parks is, we talked about Adopt a Park and even collaborating with nonprofits. It's just groups of people caretaking on their neighborhood really, really matters. And they're a consolidated group of people. I think one reason why the downtowns come back is the DIB is sort of that group of people who come to the city and say, we stand together and we want this thing. We want flowers here and we're going to pay for them or we're going to do it. And it's that consolidated voice. Otherwise, we're just herding cats of like one person, one-off comments. And that's what you'll see too, is that common pattern of eyes on the park, eyes on anything makes things better. And so,
Like,
again.
we mentioned the CRA earlier, and I'm actually working with a program that works with the CRA, World Changers.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so,
Great organization.
I have letters to send out to them.
Yeah.
So I'm helping them
Awesome.
this year try to help take care of the kids that are coming in and to help find people that need help, basically.
Yeah.
It's a great organization. They helped me, and I really appreciate them. So maybe that could be something we could look into when those kids come in, because they had 5,500 volunteers, and now they're down to maybe less than 2,000. I don't know. Children just aren't doing children. So what I'm trying to do right now is to reach out to our churches, our community, to get our children involved. Because they came to my house, and my son was laying in the bed, and I called him. I said, if he can't get up and help you, then you have to leave, because no teenager's gonna work on my child's house and he's in the bed sleeping. That's not gonna happen. So what we're trying to do is find a way to get our children involved. So I'm working with Chris Birch with that organization right now. So maybe that may be another avenue that they can we can utilize.
And that's what's important. What we've seen here today with coming together, the beginning of the organization to address safety, to address the park, to address the concerns that you all have as a community. That's what we need to have, that collected, unified voice. And so there are tools that we've got available, the CRA, and we haven't even talked about the PrAC, the Parks Recreation and Closure. We've sat a committee that have begun looking at all of our parks. For the size of Panama City, we've got about 55 parks, which is way too many, right? And so that has happened. Danielle Pierce sits on the Parks Recreation and Closure Committee. And so that's a voice too, to get input from her about what they're discussing at that level as well. But this has done my heart good today, to see the community come forward and to stand up, to see the soccer club remain coming forward, standing up. That's what it's gonna take, folks from Truesdale, community, to give voice to what we would like to see in our neighborhoods. So thank you all.
And touching on that too, so part of what local government, especially here, is not used to in citizens is public discourse, which is this different opinions all coming in one room and coming together. And a lot of our job is repairing communities after the discourse, because discourse is rough, and it's hard to talk about things that we don't like and do like, and you saw that today. And so, a lot of repair needs to be done from a lot of these conversations, because a lot of nasty things get said on Facebook, and it's easy to say nasty things on Facebook, and then someone reads it and they bring that to these conversations. And so a lot of our job is consolidating opinions, bringing groups together, and then trying to repair things as we're discussing things. So.
Hi, Rachel Boswell.
Yeah.
I am part of the St. Andrews Soccer Club. I'm a mom of the 3 boys over here that play. And one of the narratives that really has hurt my heart over Oak Grove Park, and I'll tell you that, I'm a new Florida resident, only been here a year and a half, and I didn't know about Robert Mary Cain Park. I've been doing so much more research, learning about Robert Mary Cain, because, again, new Florida resident, I know nothing, so I'm learning. And one of the narratives that's really hurting my heart as a mom and a lover of children is that our club is trying to push out the community. And that's very, very far from the truth. Like, we're trying to find something. Like, if you've ever come to our open play, Commissioner Lucas, please, once we get them up and running, please come again. We have 150 kids that come on Monday night. And maybe half of them are part of our travel club. The majority of them are from your community, from the Hill. And my son over here, he just started a new school recently. He actually went to school knowing nobody, gets into school. He knows kids from the Hill that go to his school because he met them at open play. We want as many kids as we can to come to this community, to come to this event. And that park, like my husband said, 40% of our members live within a mile. They walk to practice because their parents are still working and they can't get there. We are not a for-profit travel team, which is what really opened my heart to St. Andrews, because there are many teams out there that are for-profit, and that's not what we're here for. We're here for the love of soccer, for the kids that come and play. We've spent many hours at Oak Grove, Mary Robert Cain Park, and we were there on a Sunday afternoon, and people just came over and were playing soccer, and we had to cancel open play a few times due to inclement weather. We don't want to ruin the field. And a whole bunch of the kids from the community still showed up because they were looking to play with us. And we had an open community day, open to everybody. I went out and we were all over the neighborhood inviting people. We wanted people to come and spend time with us. We had raffles, we had food, we were playing soccer. There were just people, and we want the community to be very involved. And it just very hurts my heart because this is for the kids. And I don't care where we practice. As a mom of 3, and I'm going to get my kids to practice wherever they need to go. Their love of soccer is what keeps that going. I love that we're at Robert and Mary Cain Park, where we can reach the most of our people and your community as well. And it's just, we're reaching so many kids that we can't reach, or other travel teams can't reach, because there are so many people that do love soccer. And as of right now, as the field stands, that's the only sport that is available, really, to that field. And that's unfortunate, because parks should encompass everything. And I know that proposed fields have been given, but we're also then competing with, Harder's Park. There's BCYSA. There's if we go to Lynn Haven Sports Complex, there's other sports that practice there. All these other fields are getting torn up. We were at
Frank Nelson.
Frank Nelson. I knew it was a Frank, sorry.
Wonderful.
Still learning my way around Panama City. I can get me
And
to
they're
a
all
few
related
places.
to each other
Yeah.
back there.
Yeah. I can get myself to a few places, but remembering all the names. But we were there for a little while, and then football moved in and kicked us out. And, you know, that was very, like, shocking and jarring. And then we found Robert Mary Cain Park, and, you know, we were able to reach more kids that we couldn't reach, even Frank Nelson, because they were able to come and walk. And that's just our goal. We just want my kids step on the field. All they see is a friend, a teammate, a brother that they get to play soccer with and hang out with. Like, that's their love of the game. And we just want to keep that going with all the kids. And so I do appreciate your time and listening, but.
Well, no, I appreciate what you have to say. And as you saw here, the term of the agreement, $40,000 and maintenance for 10 years. Can we talk about that? And the answer always, we never get to talk about that. And that's the crux of the matter. There is no other agreement that the city has done like that. And so can we talk about that and find a different way? We're not against kids. We're not against soccer. You know, it's the terms of the agreement and the trust that has been put in me and all of the elected officials here to look out for the entire community. And so we're willing to have the conversation if we can talk about what the sticking point is.
And I understand that, and I think that's another thing that has been very misconstrued is this word exclusivity. We are not looking to be to shut everybody out. What we have proposed is for the safety and maintenance of the field to minimize the amount of hours and teams that are using the field to keep it safe, to keep it usable. Because as you know with Frank Nelson, having football out there, if you've ever been out there after a while, you can't play soccer on that field anymore because football is different. You're pushing and you're putting up just a bunch of different struts, right? So that exclusivity, and it's not even exclusivity, we're just looking for priority of the use of the field I'm not even sure, but please correct me if I'm wrong, but typical parks are open from dawn to dusk, correct? Like, that's typical park time. Our practices that we would be looking to schedule even typically occur after dusk. We're looking at 5:30, from 5:30 to 8, whatever, right? So technically at that point in time, anyways, the park is closed. So we're not excluding or shutting anybody out, and the gates are wide open, so if people still want to come and hang out, that's, I think that term is really,
But for 10 years, only soccer. That's the sticking point.
I understand.
Can we get past that sticking point to some sort of an agreement beyond that?
So, I'm not a part of the soccer club, but I can see the perspective of, gosh, please don't put a football team on our field and then destroy it this weekend, and then they go, here's your field back, and you're like, our field, you can't even practice on it. So I can see that. I think that might be the perspective that's getting sort of lost of exclusivity, and they're just trying to protect where they come back on a Monday and we're like, hey, thanks for letting us use your field. Should we just wreck it?
And their investment.
Yeah, totally.
That's the biggest part is that if we're investing, which we would love to, because it's not just for us. It is also for the community and the kids, and because when we're using the field's wide open the rest of the time to come and play, and we're not even using it. We have a proposed schedule and everything. But yes, like the mayor said, a football, you're driving and you're pushing, you're in a line, that's going to dig up the field. So that is one of the reasons that it's only soccer at that point, because what other sport other than soccer on that field you're going to see? What? Football? Because you're not going to play basketball on grass. I mean, it's not meant to be a baseball field. It's not sand. There's nothing there. So, and I get that, but that's the thing. That field currently, as it stands, is set to be a soccer field. Those goals that are there are not St. Andrews. As much as that narrative has been pushed, those are the city goals. The only thing that we have done is add the nets for students or kids and people to use when the field is open. Those goals do not belong to us. We improve them by adding the nets.
So one of the things I have to do in this position is to put out the narratives that aren't on the issue. And there are a lot of them in this particular. And so putting all those things aside, what's the crux of the matter? And now we're beginning to talk about that, right? $40,000 to totally resod the field is the investment you're asking for in exchange for a multi-year soccer-only field. I've heard the community doesn't like that. So let's sit down and talk about where we can get to from there. We may not get there by February, given the issue of the safety of the field. So what has happened is in this discourse that we've had over this time, several things have come up that I think it's incumbent upon us as a city not to ignore, right? And playing soccer in our city is problematic. That has come out of this, right? And so what are the potential possibilities or solutions that we can gauge? If you all are willing to engage in the conversations beyond just, we only want Robert and Mary Kane Park and that's it.
I understand, and that's not where we don't just want Robert Mary Kane Park. Cameron, I know, has done extensive research on the fields around Panama City as well to see, and we are searching for, especially with the team or the spring season. Sorry, the spring season coming forward. Like, we are trying. My kids, like, we go over to the field now and play as just us because we're not having our open play right now. We're not practicing right now. It's a kind of our break. But I have 3 boys. If you live in a house with 3 boys,
you got to get out.
You have to get out of the house.
Yeah.
And for us, we go to school right off of Frankfurt Ave. So Robert and Mary Kane Park is right there. So we just, can go over right after
You're at
school.
not Palm Bay, Rising Rangers?
No, we're actually at Covenant Christian, the other end of Frankfurt.
Alumni.
So we're kind of separate.
Thank you, Professor.
So we are it's not that we only want Robert and Mary Kane Park. That's not it. We are looking for other solutions. It's just that Robert and Mary Kane Park is one of the best fields available for soccer for us, plus reaching the children that are on that are part of our team. Like, if we do move to Frank Nelson Park, we now can lose 40% of our kids because they may not have rides all the way over to Beachside. We move to H.G. Harder's again because of where people are located to Robert and Mary Kane Park. We might lose 40% of our kids. So it's not just that we want Robert and Mary Kane Park. It's that it's a beautiful solution for us, for the community, because as of right now, there are no grants to improve Robert and Mary Kane Park, right? I'm not sure if there are any in the works, but as you stated, they take year and a half, long time, right? So we're offering, the $40,000 to improve this field, not just for us, but also for the community. And, some of the things that have gone around about our club and that I've seen on social media, I just kind of look and see. And the things that have been said about our club is kind of disheartening, and it hurts because it's coming from the community that we're trying to work with. And that's really frustrating. And there have been a lot of narratives that have been said about us without anybody communicating with us or talking to us, getting to know us. I invite you all, when we get open play, if we can get open play back up and running at Robert Mary Kane, please come out. Come spend time with us. Come watch not just our St. Andrews kids, but watch your kids come play. We've lent our balls out to kids in the Hill community because they've walked over and been like, hey, you guys aren't playing. And we're like, well, no, the field is crappy. We don't want to destroy it. Here, have some balls. Go, they played right in our parking lot. So it's not like it's just that field right now is a good solution for us, not just because it's a soccer field, but because of the community and the people and the kids that we're reaching. So
thank you.
I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Well, we are 10:05. That's a wrap.
So I will just add, though, and she acknowledged something, Rachel, that, has the city done ample maintenance? We would say no, but to say we've done no maintenance at the field is inaccurate. We have done maintenance over the last several years. The prior 2 Parks and Recs director ago did oversee the restoration, the goals. They've done seeding and cut it, but it needs to be more. But it hasn't been 100% no maintenance in the last several years. I just want to state that.
I didn't say that.
No. You brought up a good point that the goals are ours. The city did make an investment in that.
Not nearly enough, yes.
Yeah, no.
One quick comment, then we're wrapping it up. We're 5 minutes over.
Ms. Lucas brought up that there's too many parks in the city, and I would have to say that I completely disagree. I would like to know couldn't we, instead of say there's too many parks, we need more green space, especially with the storms and everything. water, flooding and all of that, trees, take up the water when we lost our trees, where we have more flooding. Is there a possibility of, instead of looking to get rid of parks, to turn Panama City into a park city with green spaces that require low maintenance and give back, take the nature part, instead of getting rid of them, let's take that and make it green space and make our city more, more viable, and have a designation that we are proud of, that we have the most parks in the state. And let's turn it into, instead of getting rid of them, turn it into something that's beautiful for the city.
And Ms. King, let me just say that when I say too many parks, for a city our size and with our maintenance, what it would cost for
And our
us to
budget.
take care of all of that.
but
I like what you're saying
Yeah.
about Park City and inviting the community to be a part of us taking care of this. And I think that's what the PrAC, Parks,
There you go.
Yeah.
Recreation and Closure is looking
Well,
at.
and most of the parks that we're thinking of as parks are like, it's really a vacant lot that people just think it's a vacant lot. And that's really that's when we say parks, it's just a vacant lot that someone's given us
Is
that's
there,
under the parks
is there a
budget.
way to get a map of where all those are?
Absolutely, we'll have a list coming.
I would like to add that, Dolores, if you haven't, I would drive by Hintz Park. So we just had a deluge, lots of the part of the city flooded. My neighborhood happens to be the Hintz neighborhood, and we did not flood this go-around. Part of the reason is we turned the park into also part of a stormwater facility mitigation plan, and that reduced the flooding in the neighborhood, ultimately solving the issue. So that's where, some parks can have dual purposes just beyond, a vacant lot. They can be part of our stormwater infrastructure, they can be part of a lot of bigger picture that is a green space.
Yes,
So-
and the planting of trees will
Mhm.
help, with the flooding and all of that. So if there's a way to, to do that, and I sort of adopt a park would be, helpful for that too. But if there's adopt a green space, turn this park, so it's no maintenance for the city, but it is a green space.
So I think when we say the word parks, most people envision a nice green space.
Playground, or, yeah.
Or, place people want to go. And the 58 parks that the city has, not all of them are like that. In fact, most of them are not like that. They're infill lots that somehow either we wound up with through a state program or somebody donated it to us. And maybe the local citizens be willing to do an adopt a park, but I don't think that if we were to take people to most of these parks, that they would identify that as a park without us pointing at it and saying that's a park.
Okay, well, wildlife habitat,
yeah.
no maintenance.
So-
Plant a few trees and turn it into wildlife habitat.
So as you've
Because we are
heard, the
losing
parks,
so much of that with
the
our
parks
development.
group that we've put together, they're looking at all options. So
Yeah. Dolores,
that is-
our representative in St. Andrews is Nancy, and so
Okay.
I would encourage you to have an in-depth conversation with her.
Oh, definitely.
And she can tell you where they're at in their process and what they're looking at, and some of the things they found in their deeds and all those other stuff that they're going
Okay,
through.
awesome. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, meeting is adjourned, 10:10.
Just
Thank you for coming.
mulch. For every cubic yard of mulch that you take out of the landfill and put into one of the parks, you're putting back topsoil and trapping water and stuff. I'm just saying.